You're calling the meeting to order, and I'm the superintendent calling the meeting to order to, because right at the moment, we don't have a board chair. So it is 6:37, sorry. Hi, Nick. So the first order of business, I'll take a nomination for board chair.
I would like to nominate Martha Heath for board chair.
No second required.
No second required, is there?
But you can ask for
Other nominations? Oh, that was Kim.
That's Kim.
Other nominations? This isn't
Kim.
working for me.
Kim.
Okay, so Kim, and did anybody second that, Kim?
We don't need a second,
Got it, thank you.
but I'm asking for other nominations. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of having Martha Heath as board chair, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Diane. And those that are not in favor, I think everybody said it. Say nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Martha, for being willing.
Thank you. I have a cold, so I always have problems with my voice, but it's going to be even worse tonight. Thank you. I mean it. It sounds like a cliche, but I mean it when I say it's an honor to serve as your chair. This is a great board, and I'm proud of the work that we've done in our time together. So I will now entertain motions for position of vice chair.
I'll nominate Kim Gleason for vice chair.
Okay,
I'll second.
don't need a second. Did you get that, Andre?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of Kim Gleason as vice chair, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Kim.
Thank
Thank
you.
Now, open nominations for clerk. I have spoken with Marla. If the board is interested in having her continue as clerk, she is willing to do that with the understanding that she probably won't be back with us till the end of May, early June. So I will open nominations for the position of clerk.
I will nominate Marla.
Okay, Kim Gleason nominates Marla. Are there other nominations? If not, all those in favor of Marla as clerk, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, wonderful. I am going to need someone to volunteer to just take down times that we exit executive session or adjourn on nights where that's the last thing that we do. Is there anyone who would be, you're willing to do that and then communicate with Kim? Okay, wonderful. All right, so the first thing on our agenda tonight is an executive session on contracts. So I will entertain a motion that we move into executive session to discuss contracts. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I make that motion.
Thanks, Kim. Kim Gleason makes the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. So we're going to move to the conference room. Okay, we are going to reconvene at 7:13. And our next item on the agenda is comments from the public on items that are not part of the agenda. Is anyone here to speak to something that we're not talking about tonight? No? Okay. So next is the consent agenda. Does anyone need to pull anything from the consent agenda? So you will see that the annual meeting minutes are on there twice. I think technically we're supposed to affirm those minutes as opposed to approve them. So that's the way I'll word it. Okay, so I'm gonna entertain the motion, and here we go. I'll entertain a motion to approve the school board meeting minutes of April 3rd, the special community engagement meeting minutes of April 3rd, professional appointments consisting of Erica DeVisi, a full-time teacher at Founders, Kimberly Horton, school counselor at Essex Elementary, Angela Latry, I'm sure I'm butchering these names, a teacher, full-time teacher at Founders, Richard Wright, the assistant director for adult education at CTE, and Andrew Corin, humanities teacher at ATL. Also, approval of warrants and approval of the following annual board reorganization business, the appointment of the firm of Wells and Leopold as legal counsel, setting the monthly meetings for the first and third Tuesday of each month, authorizing the superintendent to accept and administer external grants and funds, granting the authority to the administration to pay bills, establishing the Burlington Free Press as the newspaper of record, authorizing the clerk or the chair to sign warrants on behalf of the board, accepting the EWECUUSD Code of Conduct, and affirming the annual meeting minutes. Will someone make that motion?
Martha? Is
Yes.
it too late to pull something if I have a question about one of those items on the board business list?
You can do that. I'll take it out of the motion.
Okay, the establishing the dates of our meetings, I had a question about that.
Okay, so we'll pull that. Al, you're making the motion to
Yes.
approve all the rest of it.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, so we've pulled the first and establishing our meeting dates as the first and third Tuesday of the month.
I just had a question because I know in the past we had discussed after the legacy boards were dissolved, discussing whether we would consider moving our meetings to Mondays because apparently a lot of board meetings used to be on Mondays. I don't know if it's better or worse for me. I know that my school's PTO meetings are always on Tuesday, so I think a lot of things had been scheduled around board meetings being on Monday, but we're a bunch of different districts. I don't know how that is for everyone else.
Okay. Beth, do you have any comment?
For the night of the meeting, doesn't.
Doesn't matter. Other board member thoughts?
Tuesday's a little easier, but it's a short-term problem for me, so it's okay.
We'd have to change the Boyce's meetings. Those are Mondays, but we could do that probably.
Yeah, I mean, my schedule is unfortunately varied. It's difficult. Like, I can get Tuesday evenings off because it's a known product for me. I don't know necessarily that I could be completely consistent on Mondays. Usually I can, but it's once a month is different from once every.
I've got a short-term problem on Monday, and that will go away July 1.
How about if we keep the Tuesday through the end of June and then talk about it again.
Yeah, I had just wondered if there had been some reason why it had been on Mondays in the past for business, so I thought it was good to raise the question.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I think it
Great.
was the duplicate meetings that we were all attending.
Right.
Right, well, right. But I don't know that Monday had
I
anything
don't really remember either.
Significant.
perfect
Sure.
about it. It's just the way it
Maybe
was.
worth looking at municipal meetings.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. I know
Right, those are-
the select board meets on Monday.
They're Mondays, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Trustees are Tuesdays.
so I'll entertain a motion that from now until July 1st, we establish our meeting times as the first and third Tuesdays of the month.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Sandra. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a request. Pardon? That's okay, I can pull it
You're
up
doing
on
a
my
lot of technical
iPad.
stuff.
I'm a little slow, but I can do it.
Give yourself
Does anyone need it?
a lot of technical stuff to me.
Who wants it? No. I need to put in record. Okay, I received a request from some students from Westford to appear before us tonight to make a request regarding flying the Black Lives Matter flag at the Westford School. I have let them know through the principal that we won't make a decision tonight. We will hear from them and we will make a decision at our May 1st meeting, okay? So, welcome. We're very pleased to have you here. If you could identify yourself as you speak. I think if you wouldn't mind, the camera's gonna wanna get you, so maybe if you come over here in front of this screen, is that gonna work for you? Okay, there, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you've got your names on here. That's fantastic.
Before you read these and look at these, one of our members is not here, Grace Quiet, and this is the unedited form of this. So there are some things you might not see. Just a heads up. Is standing right here okay?
That's good.
That's great.
Alright. You can go. Alright, I'm Virginia. I'm in 6th grade. My name's Belle Pitcher. I'm in 7th grade and I'm part of the World of Difference.
I'm Rosie. I'm in 7th grade and I'm part of the World of Difference.
Technical difficulties.
We know that.
I've been dealing with that all night.
Sorry about that.
Do you want to put it up there? You good?
I think we should.
You want to?
Yes.
Can you email it real quick? To,
Yeah, sure.
so it's B Cobb, B-C-O-B-B, right, Beth?
I'm sorry, what?
Can they email it? They want to put it on the screen. It's B-C-O-B-B at ewsd.org.
Yes, sorry about that.
And then she just.
Quite okay.
This one,
What's that?
did they get it?
Yeah, they got it. It's Beth is just pulling it up. And I'm gonna move because I can't see.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just to use the arrows. You're welcome.
The flag's purpose and meaning. The Black Lives Matter flag represents diversity and equity among peers and the community. We should raise this flag.
Is this people presenting?
Yeah, you can hear.
No. Gotta speak up, Rosie. Do we have microphones? We're gonna be important, guys. We need a mic.
Let me give this one, Martha.
I'm a quiet person, so this is hard for me.
Doing great.
Hold on, Diane, I'm working on it.
Look at them.
Thank you.
We can hear you.
The Black Lives Matter flag represents diversity and equity among peers and community. We should raise this flag to raise awareness in our community and to spark action against racial injustice. The call for Black Lives to Matter is a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation. That's the Black Lives Matter mission statement. We want to be a supportive community for those suffering with social injustice and racial injustice.
Racial injustice today. Examples of racial injustice today are racism, the idea that people of color aren't equal to white people. Systemic racism, a form of racism that is used by the government, schools, and etc. Implicit bias, attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner.
Anti-police movement. By raising the flag, it's not meant to be anti-police in any way. This is about helping everyone dismantle systemic racism in our culture and institutions. Education, health, care, politics, etc. The goal is to get police on board when we raise the flag. We want to have mutual respect between police and schools. Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. Some people believe that the Black Lives Matter flag is insulting or decisive because all lives matter. Let me offer an analogy. It's like when you are writing an essay. All parts of an essay are important to have a really good essay. Just as in the essay, all lives matter to have a really good community. However, sometimes you need to focus on one part of your essay, the part that needs the most attention, in order to make it better. Example, you focus on the lead of an essay, still knowing that all the parts of the essay matter.
Flying the BLM flag starts a conversation. As students who care about this important topic, we are asking that you talk with your students before you raise this flag so that they understand why. This is important that students have tough conversations about race with you. We are to be happy to come into your classroom and to present and to read aloud with your students. This slide was directed towards teachers when we did the fact-checking.
Connections with history. Personally, I think the American Civil Rights Movement is one of the most important events in history. It links to the past, to the present, and it shows a glimpse of the future. Rosie's civil rights intro, which is very good. It connects to the past, to the present. Oh goodness, hold on, sorry. It connects to the past, to the present, because the movement stopped segregation and started the process of equality. It shows a glimpse of the future by showing what could happen when people work together. And right now, we are in the gray zone of equality, and we could be on the verge of the next steps. The next steps would be equity. By raising the flag, we raise awareness that this is important work isn't finished. We would be one step closer.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
So, I'm, let's see.
No, I'm gonna take this.
I'm good. Got it. Thanks.
Do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns?
I imagine we will. So, thank you very much for a great presentation. So, board members, what questions or thoughts do you have? Keely?
Thank you for coming and talking to us today. I was wondering what you think for us in evaluating both your proposal and if your proposal inspires other groups of students to make proposals to the board, what criteria you think we should consider in deciding whether to follow through with a student proposal? Does it matter how many people sign your petition, just how good your argument is? What criteria do you think we should establish?
Could you reword that?
So let's say that we think that 3 people came and made a good argument. Should we decide to follow through with your proposal because it was a good argument? Or should we be more convinced if you came with the signatures of half the kids in your school? What do you think is important to show that your school really needs us to follow through with your petition?
I feel like having a good argument is important, but I see where you're coming from with having other people on board too. And if you need proof that other people are on board, I think we can get that.
Interesting.
Because I know people understand.
Thank you.
But
Thanks for coming also. Great job and an important topic. I have 2 questions. The first is, what have you or other classmates or even teachers have done in the school to encourage conversations around the issue of racial injustice prior to this proposal?
I know that when I was in the younger grades, we do like read alouds of books about that and talk about it. But also, like, we went around and we presented to a bunch of different classes about it.
With some high schoolers from Montpelier who
Yeah.
raised the flag.
And we had discussions about that.
And my second question is part of the reason this is coming up for you because you or your classmates are experiencing racial injustice in your school in particular? Or is this a broader concern about racial injustice more broadly defined?
I feel like there may be some things happening in our school, but not as much as there's happening in our community, government, state, country. It's an important topic all over the world even. So I feel like having tiny schools like Westford and even small, well, they're pretty big, but districts like Essex, Westford, having at least some support is helpful.
Liz?
Thank you. Yeah, great presentation, and thank you so much for being here. Have you thought about how long you would want it to be raised? Is it a campaign that's defined, or did you want to raise it forever? Did you have thoughts on that?
I personally would like to see it stay up forever. That would be, I believe, awesome if we could do that. But long enough that we can get the message across that we support Black Lives Matter, and for people to come and see it and be able to witness it at our school.
Long enough that it matters and it makes a difference.
Great presentation. I do want to speak to you as adults, so I'll do that if you don't mind. To my knowledge and from what I researched today, I believe that this would be the first instance in the country of a K-8 school raising a Black Lives Matter flag. I was not able to find any other instances. There were high schools and some colleges that did that, and they experienced blowback. You know, there were death threats involved from people across the country because this is a racially charged issue, and there are a lot of emotional involvement around that. The reason why I'm asked this question as adults is, I'm just also wondering if you're prepared to handle that by speaking out like this, but you are also going to have to, in some manner, shape, or form, be subject to, some pretty horrible things that are going to be said about you, your school, whether they be vague or potentially even directed to individuals who are part of this. Are you prepared to handle that, do you feel?
Personally, I think that in my own way I would be prepared for this, and That's because I have been called rude and crude names because of who I am. And it might get to us in the beginning, but I do think that we will overcome it and realize that their opinion doesn't matter. It's the opinions of people who support us and are around us to support us that matter. And as long as we believe in ourselves, we can stay strong.
And I feel like we have a strong community too. I know there are multiple people in Westford who do have Black Lives Matter signs up, and they do support this. And I feel like if we actually work together as a community, we could potentially solve some of this.
Those are great questions too. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members? Andre?
Sure. Thank you very much for your presentation. If this was to come into existence where you were allowed to fly the flag, and then another group approached making a similar request but with a different banner or flag, what would your reaction be if you were asked to take yours down to allow the others to fly theirs?
What's your flag?
Well,
Yeah.
one example, it could be the PLW, MIA flags. I mean, I think the question, it could be virtually any group that presented an argument to fly their flag.
I feel like if they had a strong argument, I'd consider doing it. But I feel like we have a strong argument too, and we have a strong reason for doing it. So
My question to you is, why can't we fly both of them?
That's a good solution,
Fly both of them.
acceptable.
Brendan?
So, flying the flag is great. Do you have other, if the flag were to fly, what other kinds of things would you be doing to, I assume that you would want to do more than just fly a flag. So what do those things look like?
definitely having talks with our community in classrooms. I think having town gatherings kind of like this, where we talk about these issues, and same thing with classrooms, like I said. I think that's something that we could do, so that everyone's aware.
I should say thank you too. My question is, when you presented to classrooms in the school, did you get some pushback from other students about your ideas or what you wanted to do?
Well, I don't think there was anybody that was really like totally against it, like this is a bad idea, we shouldn't do it. Some people were just like, okay, whatever, like sounds cool. And others were like, yeah, this is a good idea, we should definitely do this.
I know there were a few people who thought, why are we flying a Black Lives Matter flag when all lives matter? And when we talked to the 6th grade about this, there was, I think, a few people who were thinking that same thing, like, we're in the 21st century, we should know by now that all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter, but there's reasons why we're flying this flag, and important reasons.
And I think your statement, your presentation, and your comparison to an essay was a good analogy. That was great. Other comments
I
or
just have a
questions? Nick, let's do
you can
Nick
go.
and then I'll
Yep.
come to you.
Hey, as a student myself, I really commend you for coming up here and speaking about something you really believe in. I have a couple questions. Have you you mentioned that you spoke with someone from Montpelier. What other schools have you worked with, and how many people as of late would you consider a part of your active members of your movement in Westford now? And have you worked with there's a diversity club at Essex High School that's amassed a petition with a lot of signatures as well. Have you worked with them at all?
We haven't the only school that we've worked with. But we'd be open to talking to other schools too.
Would love to.
Great. Beth?
I just wanted to say, as a superintendent, you make me very proud. For one, coming to the school board with a strong argument, and also standing up for what you believe in and doing all the learning that you had to do to present that information to us. You are the reason why I'm a superintendent. Thank you.
A lot.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Was Diane saying something?
Oh, Diane, I'm sorry.
The audio is poor. You sound like you're underwater. I guess I'll have to watch it on
There
tape
you
if
go.
it's being taped to
Yes,
try and
it
hear
is.
and see.
Okay.
Sorry.
It was awesome.
Trust us. Kim.
I also want to say thank you and know that while we aren't able to take action now, some of the questions that folks have been because we do want to be able to be thoughtful and make sure that we're setting sort of standards for this that we could replicate for other requests that are similarly well thought through. And I'm also thinking about our district as a pre-K-12 district and wonder if you guys had thought about that at all as being the first to come before our board on this topic and what you might envision it meaning for any of the other schools within our district.
Sorry, I totally blanked. I had something to say and now I can't remember.
I feel like having other schools would be important, and I think we'd be glad to come and talk to other schools and to have other schools have conversations like this too.
Great. Any last thoughts or questions? Does anybody in the audience have questions for the students? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for letting us come.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Okay. Whoops. Let's- All right. Before we move on, is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this agenda item? All right. Wonderful. Thank you again. That was fabulous. All right. Moving on. Our next item is start and end times update. Beth, who's doing this?
So we did bring to the community tonight in our third session decisions that were made. We presented our first version where we had a later start in the school day for the high school and also for the middle school and getting feedback. We also had 2 different times for collaboration. Getting feedback from the community, we switched that. We went to 1 day. We're not changing the high school time right now. We really feel we need more time to explore that with people from the high school and CTE and looking at, well, especially with CTE and the sending schools, to align all that is going to take longer than we anticipated. So we do need to step back from that, and I would like to be able to create a group of students and teachers and admin to really explore that from both Essex High School and CTE and to figure that out. And also to bring community partners in that with the RAB, the Regional Advisory Board, to talk because they send people from the sending schools to CTE. So we kept the schedule the same there, but went with the duration of 7 hours a school day to the rest of the schools, because when we looked at that difference, one of the biggest difference was between some of the elementary schools was when you added all those minutes, it was a 12-day difference, which was pretty significant. We kept with Tuesday as the day for teachers, that they will, right now there's faculty meetings on Tuesdays, and that was decided for this year coming into that they would sync those. So that's one of the reasons why we kept with Tuesday. And on Tuesdays, K through 8 will be a 6-hour instructional day, so that teachers can collaborate, and they'll spend above and beyond their normal day to be in PLCs and collaborate across the district and have faculty meetings. And on those days also, it will help scheduling. When I talk to principals about it, it really is now looking at a schedule for student need instead of adult need. Usually when we look at calendar or schedules within a school, you're trying to schedule PE and art and think about who needs what as adults. And this takes that pressure off, and we can look at students' needs and figure out intervention and some other things that need to happen. Liz?
Questions, Liz? Yeah.
That's the content. I can talk a little bit about the engagement, but actually Reed is here from, he's working with us for Great Schools Partnership. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about the engagement effort. Reed was able to attend the last two and helped with the meeting design with me and Brian earlier. Did you want to say anything, Reed?
Sure. So my name is Reed Dyer. If you don't know me, I work for a nonprofit called Great Schools Partnership, and one of the two people supporting the community engagement initiative that Nellie Mae Education Fund is funding. So no, I just will say that I think that there was a lot of thoughtful work done over the series of 3, and that's probably was one of the strongest elements of that. Like there was this sort of in real time opportunity to get information, give it back, and I think that what Brian and Beth did really well was try to be pretty clear about sort of where the parameters we're operating within, and I think, so and I think that the people that attended those meetings had an opportunity to understand, give feedback, and learn. So that was all great. And there's always the challenge of like, how do you get more people, or is the critical person that's going to make a fuss not there, and what do you do about that? That's just the ongoing challenge. But I think that when you look at the way those 3 meetings went, I was able to be at 2 of them, and I think it's pretty. It sends a pretty clear message about how the district is approaching sort of big changes with regards to both communicating and learning from the community.
Yeah, and just to add, I think that there is, in general, a lot of support for the changes, and the why seems clear. There's a lot of anxiety still about the details and the hows, especially regarding transportation and childcare options and making the learning time meaningful for educators. So those are the 3, yes, we like it, but how are you going to do all of these things? And luckily that's for our administration to figure out. And
it is.
Yeah, but in general, I think that there was a lot of appreciation for the process and for being able to have a voice and see the iterations, and that their people's input did change what the schedule looks like. And I think that it was a good step in doing something a little different by being vulnerable up there and not knowing the answers at the beginning. It's a tricky thing.
Right. And even going in tonight to know their reaction,
Right.
I joked about having tomatoes thrown at us.
Yeah.
That helps you to then, if there are tomatoes, you're okay with it. No, I think I appreciate the help from Voices to just help organize that. I mean, that it would have been a lot for Brian and I to try to do that in our daily things that we have to do. But it feels good. I know that there's still people saying that the decision was made from the beginning, and that's not what happened. We really did a conscious effort to put it out there and find out what people would need. And so many schools set the schedule of the day and don't ask. I mean, that's something that is in a school's right to do that. So.
And just for clarification for people who might not be in the room right now, but I think there was some confusion about the release of a school calendar as opposed to the schedule, and that we needed to be more thoughtful of that confusion, because when the calendar was released, we got inquiries of, is that mean the start to stop times are set? We said, no, they haven't been decided. And then 12 hours later they had. And so there was some, well, did you know? And you told us you didn't know. And that was a confusion because of the schedule as opposed to the calendar. So anybody, just that was not communicated well.
And I think when that was answered, sorry, Kim, when that was answered, I think the timing of that is when Brian and I were in my office, like really drilling down to figuring out what will the final be and reading emails and going back to the data and the themes and feedback. So I think it literally was during that time.
Yeah, it was during that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kim?
I have a few questions, but I got to that meeting late, and I actually don't know what email was being spoken of. I didn't know. Should we have received an email about something?
You got one as a participant in the last one. I'll send it to you again.
Okay.
All the participants who came out to these sessions received an email with.
Oh, maybe I didn't sign in with an email. So maybe
I put you on the list because I knew you were there. I put a couple of people who I didn't sign in, but I knew you were there. So I'll send it to you again. But that's the email.
Okay.
Yep. It went out to all of the participants from all the sessions and just gave the overview and
I'll
the
look
links
for
to the
that.
presentation on the website.
But then,
Can all board members get that information?
yeah, I'm thinking.
I sent one to all board members. I can send one, initially, like way back when, with the link to the presentations after the first session. I'll be happy to send you all of the link now with the other two presentations that are available. The one that we gave tonight is not yet on the website.
Right.
As soon as it's there, I'll send you the link. But you should have the link to the others.
So my other two questions were regarding the early release and our teacher coaches, and knowing that games and actual daylight available for that are not something that I don't think we have control over. So I think that raises some concern that an early release has could consistently have teacher coaches not able to participate in their PLCs or that collaborative time. So that is a concern. And then the second was related to any additional costs that might be borne by families for the after-school programming or whatever that might be, from a position of equity, and what those experiences are for kids and families.
You want an answer?
I just want to,
That's
those
the
are.
stuff, that's still the things that we need to work out.
Is there
I
a
could
reason
say at
with
the
them-
high school that, we've talked about, they could, even on Tuesdays now, people that coach leave and they're not at faculty meetings. That's an issue anyways. This way, if they still start practice at the same time, at least they'll have an hour before they leave for practice. So those are the things we need to work out. And that's another reason why we're taking another year to explore that and around sports and all of those. That happens at every high school.
Is that I'm just thinking about all the other schools around us that are doing it, are doing late starts.
Yep. That's why we started that way.
So what was our switch? Like, what caused our switch?
Caused the switch because of the community's feedback on wanting one day and students home to take care of siblings. That way it would have gone later. They wouldn't have been home. The majority of students that have to take care of siblings. And the students that go to after-school programs to help out. They weren't able to do that if they were going on the later end. Do you know what I mean? If they were being dismissed at the 3 o'clock or whatever it is, let's use 3 o'clock. And the elementary schools were getting dismissed at 2 o'clock. The older kids were coming in later. They're still getting out an hour later than the younger kids. And we heard that from the community.
The 2:30 release solved that problem.
It
Not
does now.
changing the school day.
It does now.
But not, I'm talking about the early release versus late start. I think.
Yes, and we heard
Okay.
from community members that that's not what they wanted right now. They wanted it consistent across the district for early release, all grade levels.
Yeah.
Versus late start across.
Oh, and when we looked at that too,
That's what I was talking. Not
I'm
splitting
sorry.
the day. No,
To
not
split
at
it.
all.
Yeah, we
because-
looked at the logistics of that. For many families, thinking about that's harder with getting off to work and buses coming to pick them up, and then some being still dropped off in the morning. Then what do you do with that hour? It also gave more of a time frame and a start and an end to it, where now we have a start for teachers, but they could go for however long they need to go to. We don't, the other way, when they come in and they go directly to wherever, if I'm a Hiawatha teacher and I have to go to Founders for my PLC, then I have to get back for kids to start. This way, they can start when they all get there and then continue.
And there's an expected amount of time that they are staying, though, minimally.
Yeah, and we'll have administration will be in those, and yeah.
And the funding for whatever our partnership plans are for
Yeah, we're still working on that. I've talked to some about a rate for them, for families that need that extra hour. We've talked about different things. Those are still being worked out.
Other comments, questions, Keely?
First, a question, since I wasn't at the presentation, so I didn't really see what the proposal is. They're doing the early release Tuesdays for all schools? Okay, including the high school? Okay. Then I guess my feedback would be, first of all, I'm really glad that Essex Elementary is going to get more school.
I actually brought, I do have a copy of it. Let me get it to you.
Okay.
Sorry, I
I'm
just
emailing the
remembered.
presentation to everybody right now.
And I did make copies.
It is great to get more equity across the early elementary grades.
Yeah.
And other places where we're doing more for some kids, we can keep trying to find ways to do more for other kids. On the negative side, I'm sad that we aren't able to move forward with the high school starting later, because that was the thing that was most supported by education research.
Yep.
And I love doing things that are supported by data.
Yes, so do I.
And I think it's disappointing that it's really kind of about transportation that's holding back that decision, because
Well,
it's about
only-
the
it's
sending
because-
schools and their busing and that kind of
So
stuff.
we are, I feel good. I didn't feel good in the beginning, but I feel good that about the commitment that we will have. And I say we need a commitment for like 6 months. Let's figure it out, and then we can roll that out as this will be the change next year. I'm committed to looking at that with student input and figuring that out. I agree that I was all about the late start for students. We have to figure it out with CTE also and the sending schools. So what happens is the bus for the tech center goes and picks up, like if you're Champlain Valley School District, that tech bus comes around first, picks up kids, brings them here, and then goes back and does a run. So we just have to figure that out. Maybe tech center even starts at later. Maybe they start at 10. I don't know. We have to explore.
But basically, that wasn't a change that you could work out the logistics
No,
for
we couldn't.
this year, but you haven't dropped the idea.
No.
Okay. Pat?
This is going to sound harsh, and it's not at all
Okay.
intended. But I also think that the hard questions are the ones that are, best to have out there, because we don't want a hard question to come up 2 months in. My fear is that this conversation now sounds very similar to the transportation conversation last year, where it did ultimately fall apart, and our primary failing in how transportation fell apart was in telling people that it fell apart way too late. Here, most of the parents that I've talked to love the ideas that are within it, same as I do. Love the professional development, love the equation of time within school across the district. It's that hour of proposed enrichment time and how we're providing it, we don't have the answers yet. And I understand that we're still in that process. But my fear is that if we have 2 years in a row where we're saying we're working on this, we don't know what it looks like yet, but trust me, we're working on this. And then in August we say, we don't know, you're gonna have to find a babysitter on your own. Like, I think we lose so much trust collateral from the community that it starts becoming a major issue with us,
Yeah.
because that'll be the second year in a row where we've proposed something major, said we were delivering for an extended period of time, and then pulled back on it. So if at any point in this process, I'm wondering, do you have, or is it possible for you to build in drop dead dates? Like, if we don't have something in effect by the middle of June, we're going to have to assume that it's not happening, and that way at least we can make sure that people know, in a more timely manner than we were able to provide last year about how they make those
Do you mean
arrangements.
it's not happening like when the buses are coming, or?
I'm still not sure about the buses, but I think as far as the after school like enrichment that I've heard sort of bandied around was that they're going to
be available. So we know that something will be available for families that need that. I'm not sure. School is not a daycare.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a babysitting service. And we need to keep that in mind all the time, right? So I can't guarantee that there will be for every family something available free. I don't think that will happen. What I would like to work with the community partners is opportunities for students during that hour. And those are the things we have to work out. I'd like to work with high school students. What can they offer? And all the after school programs. And can we have swim on Tuesdays instead of Wednesday? Can we, skiing? Could it happen on a Tuesday instead of a Friday? So there's all those things that need to come into play. So right now, with the community partners, I do want to have a meeting with administration so we can really work on principals too. And really work on the best opportunities we can have for kids.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I would love to say by the middle of June we'll know.
The enrichment opportunities that are being afforded, we just need clarity on them. So if a family is not getting it, they can make alternate arrangements.
Well, one of the ones that pushed this up so much is because, like the Y has they're signing up for kids, EJRP is signing up, so that's what pushed this to okay, we need a decision by this date. That's why we did that. It forced us, which is okay. Sometimes forcing is needed.
Yeah. Can you talk into the microphone?
Sure. I know I'm a little stuffy too, Martha.
Yeah.
There had been some conversation, I think, at one of our previous meetings that I think Keely had said if there's an after-school thing offered, every family's going to take advantage of that, where a later start fewer families might actually access that. So I'm just wondering that how did that play into the consideration? And I continue to be concerned about, is it will we at least have a free and reduced lunch consideration or something for families?
Yep. Well, that happens with the after school programs now anyways.
And with the other
it's a sliding
schools,
scale.
Okay, and with the other schools having chosen to start late, that would at least give one day a week high school students starting late. It was because we didn't change the end time, so it doesn't impact their availability for the after school stuff anyway. Nope. I'm just wondering where that shift happened and what we know from other schools about why they picked mornings or professional fatigue, or I don't really know. Other schools have been doing this much longer than we have.
And I think many more schools do it in the afternoon and not in the morning.
They do. Not just around us, though. They don't.
No, it's mainly happens in the afternoon. I only know of MMU that does for everybody in the morning, and CBU does it for the high school in the morning. But that's because of their later start anyways, and probably after school sports. But that's what we're going to spend some time really exploring. How does it work at the high school? We heard from families that later start would be more difficult on families.
Okay, other,
I think on teachers too.
Yes, just one concern, and I think Pat's comment, I can resonate with it, but I think it's important that we take a survey this summer sometime and survey all of the parents and families that might be affected by this, such that we get some concrete feedback regarding the impact on a larger sample. And that way, it's how much of an impact, the degree, are there alternatives for that family? And kind of structure those questions so that we can get a feel for how much of an impact for the greater community.
So, Al, don't you think that's problematic, given that we're going to implement this in the fall?
Right.
I mean, that's why we did the community engagement. People have had, even if they couldn't come, they've had opportunities to provide input.
Okay,
so.
I want to share Pat's concern as well.
No, it's a valid concern. We can't, we can't fail twice. At a late date, I agree.
Okay.
Agree.
Okay, Brendan and Kim.
So today was the last engagement session. I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. What is the next step?
The next steps are
Read it right
develop
from
the
the
bus
slide.
routes, which all kids have been put in. We have, that's being worked on. I'm trying to think of the slide.
So it's in front of me. So the administration
There's a flag.
has
Yes.
promised to work with community partners to figure out that childcare piece. The obvious ones, EJRP and Parks and Rec, they've already had meetings with the CHIPS and the community. They're gonna the survey going out to the people who are participants in this is brainstorm, help us figure out what other organizations, dance studios, different things in the community that might be able to be part of the solution. So the administration is doing that. They're working hard on planning that intentional collaborative time so that it is meaningful, and that's going on on the administrative end. The bus routes and transportation is being worked on, as we've spoken about. The commitment to explore those possibilities for our oldest learners at the high school and CTE so that we have a schedule that makes sense for 2019 and beyond, and to a commitment to communicate clearly and frequently with the community.
Right. So I assume the board will be kept abreast of the latest developments as the weeks go by.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a sense of a plan for our support staff, either involvement in the professional development and collaboration, or any expected change in their work week or their availability to help staff the extra time?
Those
for
are the things we're
families?
exploring right now. Yep.
Okay.
And we
Other
do know that
questions or
that there
comments?
are, since we learned that there are 45% of our employees have families here, there's been a real awareness of the fact of the schedule changes that as it affects the support staff and the teachers and the community. So I think it's been very thoughtful about the pieces that need to be figured out, and there's a lot that needs to be figured out.
Okay. All right. Diane, did you have anything?
I have a question about status quo. Will the new proposal affect the fact that kids are in snowsuits for a half hour, 45 minutes after class, waiting for buses? Will that be eliminated? Will programs be offered such as music and extracurriculars, for that matter, to compensate for waiting due to the fact that the schedules, it sounds like, are not changing when it comes to the bus routes? And how will adding Essex Junction, how will that affect Essex Junction? Since the kids theoretically could walk, and how will that affect those kids that choose not to walk?
Okay, so to answer the first question, the younger students will not be sitting in snowsuits. As soon as they get out of class, they will go right to their bus. There's no wait time anymore.
Excellent.
which the after-school programs are very excited about because they can get started with their programs right away. In the early release day, in thinking about it, the buses that would be a change because they would arrive an hour earlier. So yes, there is a change to that. I think that was your second one. I don't know your third. Walkers and Essex Junction, transportation will be new there, so I don't know if I understand that question.
For the new Essex Junction riders.
Yep.
If it becomes the fact that they need to wait, will they be given the option to walk if parents choose that option? Or will they be required to wait? I know right now
waiting.
for Essex, the kids have to wait for the bus because they've got distance to travel. Just the way it happens to be.
Well, now the buses
Some-
arrive first for the younger students, so there's no waiting for a bus to come back. So now Essex Elementary has to wait until they do some other routes, and then they get the younger kids. But now that's flipped. So the younger students leave early, and that's the same with Essex Junction. The bus would leave right when the kids they leave their classroom and they go and they get on a bus. The buses will be waiting for them, then the flip side. That's one of the pluses to this, looking at this.
Great, good news, thank you.
You're welcome.
Beth, are we still thinking that transportation in the village will be outside certain radiuses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're within, say, a half a mile, kids will still walk. We're not going to provide bus.
Right.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else on start and stop times? More updates to follow. All right. We have 2 policies for first reading. Who's going to talk about these?
Somebody from the policy committee?
Are you pulling them up on the screen or should I look at them?
I am not having I'm having technical
You're not having good luck
I
with
am not having good
technology.
luck.
Sorry, I had my
I could certainly go
Word
try.
package up.
You want me to try that?
I have hard copies if you want them to speak to.
Sure, that would be helpful.
I just won't be able to write on them, but that's okay. And, yeah. That's okay.
All right. So these are policies that the administration thought were important to the functioning of the district. And Diane, feel free to cut in if I'm not saying anything right. The first one, policy F21, is on financial reports and statements, which talks about the responsibilities of the administration in running a fiscally sound organization. And it's mostly just describing generally accepted accounting practices. Does anyone have any questions about policy F21?
Are there any differences from the model policy in this area?
Model.
Was there a model?
Is that the one that went to quarterly, though? The model policy, yeah, there is a model policy. The model policy, I think that's the one, I don't have it in front of me right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that went from monthly, but we had added the quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah.
One or two mentions of month or monthly seem to have slipped through in the editing process.
Oh, it did? Okay.
So please search for month again.
Okay.
I see number 3 under administrative responsibilities.
But
that might-
During the month.
The financial
Yeah,
report will
should
be
say
made
quarter.
monthly.
Okay.
Right. So, okay. Any other questions on policy F21?
No.
I'll just say I can't wait to start getting these reports, as Brian knows.
as excited as some of us are about like testing data.
Can you send me the financial one down this way? So I
Yes.
can-
The two mentions of them on.
Okay, let's move on then to E10 voluntary, K through 8 voluntary school reassignment.
So this one is kind of exciting because it comes out of something that we discussed extensively in the Red Study Committee. The opportunity for families, first of all, to move within the district without displacing their children has been in place but not explicitly described in the policy. Before we were all one district, if you moved from a house in the town to the junction or Westford to the town or what have you, your child was required by law to pick up and move school unless you wanted to pay tuition. So that has no longer been the case since we became one district. That's described here, but now there's also the opportunity to apply for being in a different school because of your interests or the needs of your family. And it is a very detailed policy that gets into a lot of things that the administration identified were specific to our district, like making sure that it respects class sizes, so that we can use it as a tool when a school is kind of bursting at the seams to encourage students to move to a less full school, and we don't have to hire teachers at one school and let go of teachers at another school. And also just if we in the future think about focusing on different themes at schools, people can pursue their interests. If people have complicated family situations or jobs in one town, home in another, they can look into this option. But it is respectful of the administrative decision-making and educational priorities of the district also. I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to read all of the details. It's been adapted from some other districts that were slightly different. Does anyone have questions?
Yes.
If the migration from one school to the other, would one of the deciding factors be, because you touched upon respecting class sizes, so that could be the deciding factor as to whether the move would be allowed or not?
Yes. So it goes through the superintendent. So some of the districts around set a number, but we didn't feel like a number, little conversations about numbers, but we didn't feel it was appropriate for this because like right now we have a large third grade class throughout the district, not just in the junction, but we're overflowing at Fleming for fourth grade next year. But Founders is also full. So right now I'm considering that. So it does go through the superintendent, and the class size has a lot to do with it.
Then by the same token, geographical would play
Exactly.
a role, whereas
Right.
they must go to the school based geographic, no choice per se.
Right.
Okay.
We already have a certain measure of geographic complexity in the junction because families are not assigned to Summit and Hiawatha strictly by neighborhood. So this is just sort of allowing people who have already started kindergarten to look for different options where it works for both the family and the district.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Brendan?
I'm wondering if the committee discussed the possibility of families wanting to choose a different school based on the perception that that school may be better than the school that their child is currently attending. So like, let's say for example, a student from Hiawatha, the perception is that Essex Elementary School is better for elementary age kids. Is there any concern that that perception could develop and then families could start applying to move to what is perceived to be the better school within the district?
That's why it has to go through the superintendent.
I think
Really?
I think the way things stand from who I've spoken with is that people believe that different schools are better for different reasons. So some schools may really be better for one family, and this gives people the opportunity to seek that out. But if it becomes like some crazy exodus that everyone wants to go to Westford because of their amazing outdoor resources, then the superintendent will say only X number of people and there's priorities, and if your sibling already goes, then you have priority, otherwise there's a lottery. So
Yeah.
We considered those things.
Andre?
This is not necessarily on school placement, but is there at some point a discussion on participation of extracurricular activities per se, like if one school is got more than is ideal, but another school has less, then is there a discussion at some point going to allow for the movement of going to another location because of more opportunities to participate? Example of Essex Town has 7-8 lacrosse that maybe they have too many kids, whereas Westford we're borrowing students from other schools. And is this at some point being envisioned to provide for?
Absolutely. There is something, what did we do this year for
Cross
Westford?
country.
Yes. Yeah.
So this year,
Yeah.
Westford didn't have enough kids for cross country,
Right.
but they were offered the opportunity to run
Over,
in
yeah.
Essex.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yep.
But I think it continues to be a model in
Yeah.
progress, or
Right.
Yes,
work
absolutely.
in progress.
Yep. Well, and that's the benefit for being one district is opportunities for students.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
anytime we can offer opportunities for students. And our principals are really good at that. I'm talking about that and
Yes.
wanting to work together. So for the benefit of kids.
Good.
Kim?
I don't think it's, I completely understand that it can't come with transportation, but school, even public school choice, for the fact that you could be selecting just those who can transport their kids themselves.
Right.
I would just say I appreciate the policy and providing those guidelines, and also the idea of keeping an eye on
Yes,
to what
the
extent
equity
we're
piece.
creating inequity
Yeah.
in offering opportunity in
Yeah.
this way.
Right, the policy
Exactly.
that we borrowed didn't have that at all, and we really looked at the equity of that and added that. It's like that last sentence on the first
Piece
paragraph.
about. Good. Anything else? Okay, so we've decided we don't act on first readings, so we're going to move on. You were provided in your packet procedures for student discipline, acceptance of gifts, and field trips. Student discipline was obviously the most complex. We don't get to vote on this, but this is an opportunity to be informed about what the procedure is and to ask questions if you have questions. So, did anybody have a question?
I have a comment before you have questions. Oops,
Yes.
Diane went away. I do want to look through this procedure and our policy to look for restorative practices and to add that language in there that
Yeah.
I just haven't got to it yet.
Okay.
It's on my summer list. So,
It was noticeable that there
Yes.
was very little
Absolutely.
to nothing about
yeah.
restorative
And so
practice.
that'll be in the handbook, and as I work on that,
It's the right thing to do.
we'll put that through. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I almost didn't even want to bring it forth until that's done.
Yeah.
But we really need it.
Yeah.
I mean, we need something.
Yeah.
So.
Keely?
I noticed a few typos that don't materially change the meaning, but I'll send them to you.
Okay.
Good. Yes.
Has there been any changes in the procedures, or is this in essence?
This was a policy before.
Policy before.
Our
Okay.
procedure now, our policy now is the one that's recommended by the Vermont School Board Association, the one that you adopted last year. But
Okay.
this just gives a little more detail for administration to follow.
Okay.
So it's more consistent across the schools. That's what I think this is bringing to us.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Kim?
I think back to the restorative practice, because when we passed the required policy, and it was before you were here, Beth, that was a question that we posed to Mark and the committee then,
Yeah.
to say, this isn't saying one way or another how this is carried out. Does this language accommodate restorative practice? And we felt, I think, convinced that
Yeah.
in fact it could, and to be at the safety committee meeting and hear, I think it's Annie,
Yeah.
speak of the organic things that are happening around our district around restorative practice, felt concerning that it's organic versus a standard,
I agree.
because that student discipline is an area that, for the reasons that we want this out there, because it's defining something, having it be handled independently, differently, in ways that we know is good practice.
Yep.
I hope that that's an area we're
I
looking
am
to remedy
total
sooner
agreement.
rather than
Also,
later.
restorative practices falls under our equity plan.
Yeah, that's
So
great,
it's-
because I think
It's important.
this,
Yeah.
the student handbook, the athletic digest are all wrought with very punitive
Yep.
measures
Summer work.
that, thank you.
Well, I'll look forward to that
Well, I can
because
take a
there are
deep breath.
places in the procedure where there are lists of things
Yes.
that can happen.
I know.
And it was glaring that
Yeah.
restorative practice wasn't part of it.
Wasn't among them.
There is a place where it says if a student is suspended for their behavior, that there's an opportunity for due process. Do you know what opportunity for due process means? Or can you tell us what it means?
I don't know where you read that in there, but
It's hard for me because
Yeah.
it's very hard to flip all the way to there.
you want to look at the hard copy?
I'll look for
So
that.
the due process is the hearing, though, that you're there.
Yeah, but this was,
But it was different?
this sounded like it was for any suspension, like maybe it's a 1 or 2 day
Oh,
suspension.
Right. So if a parent disagrees with that, or a student disagrees with that, they can appeal. They can come to you, and then you would have to hear that.
But it keeps saying that the principal's decision is final.
Well, it is unless they appeal it and bring it to you.
But it never talks about appeal.
I think page 67.
I don't have any
Page
pages
67.
on this.
I mean, I just got it all in the
board
That's where
packet.
I
Oh, in the
found
board
it.
packet. Yeah, I don't
I'll be the
like the way
outraged.
those
But
board
what's
packets
the
are done.
time frame if a student is being handed a 1-day suspension? Is there like a 5 or 10-day period before the suspension comes into play to allow for the appellate process?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I haven't been in the system long enough to have that come up to know.
Because I guess that my experience was I had a child that did get suspended, but I think it was almost immediate and didn't allow for an appellate process. And that's the question. If there's a time frame that you'll have a 1-day suspension, but it's 5 days to appeal, or is that true?
There's nothing in here that suggests that appeals have to happen within a time frame, or even that appeal is a possibility.
Right.
It talks about due process, but I don't know what due process means.
Well, a due process would be that the person, the student, gets to tell their side of the story, and an administration
Okay.
tells their side of the story.
But
That's
So-
a due
so-
process.
Okay, so that is in essence an appeal.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it might be more explicit, and it might be more explicit about the time frame
That's what I-
within which that has to happen.
Because I guess
It's just a suggestion on my part. Other questions or comments?
About any of them, or?
I was just on the student discipline for now.
Well, I think F20, I think Brian needed some additional time on the finance. There were some numbers that he was.
Yeah,
gonna
no,
fill in.
Yeah, we took that one off.
We've moved on to procedures.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, how about the gift procedure? Brendan?
So, does this procedure apply to teachers that do crowdfunding campaigns through websites like Donor Choose? where they're trying to raise money for supplies for their classroom?
I actually don't know the answer to that. This is a procedure that was from the old CCSU, and it came up in the beginning of the year. Do we have a gift at the high school or something? And people
Yes.
asked for this, so that's why it's now. And
Oh, okay.
I really don't. I
It was
haven't
a
used
gift
it.
to the Booster Club, I think, from
Oh, okay.
the area business that
Right.
Yeah.
they've done
So-
such things in the past.
So if teachers are raising money for their own classroom needs, that's
Yeah,
not
it's-
something.
it would be different than this.
Than this,
This
okay.
is a
I assume even PTO is different from
Right.
this. This is an
This is somebody-
outside
Well, no,
entity.
what I'm talking about is like teachers who actually are trying to raise money online outside of the PTO for supplies for their classroom.
Yeah,
I mean, there are currently teachers in our district that are doing that.
yeah. Or there's a GoFundMe campaign for the Lego Robotics Club
Right.
in Westford who's going to the international competition. Yeah, well, maybe you can think
can
about
explain
that
it.
and get back to us. One thing that jumped out at me
Yeah, we'll just
on
discuss that. That other one we
that
didn't bring.
procedure
I don't
is
have it.
that it keeps saying, bring it to the appropriate school board. I think it just needs to say, bring it to the school board.
Really inappropriate school board.
There are several places in the gift one.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Field trips, that was pretty straightforward. Questions on that? All right, thank you for providing those
Can I
for,
just ask one question on the field trips?
oh,
Um,
okay.
Is that, is there any standardization of how field trips are funded across the schools? I
One
feel
thing
like
that we
was an area
did
that
was
been-
put money into the budget for field trips, so that we will work on that with the principals on how people, how they could get that money or whatever, a process for that. This was so that people align when a teacher wants to go on a field trip, they go through the principal and it's the learning that's in it. So this is a VSBA policy, but we changed it to the procedure because we didn't have alignment across the districts and everybody was doing it different, even within the district or within an SU. So we wanted some alignment, but it doesn't have to do with, this one's not necessarily with the money. I know that Brian wants to work on that though.
Yeah, I think that
And
is an
accessing
area
our
of a
budget.
lot of disparity and
Yeah.
and a standardization of that I think would make sense.
Yeah,
Similar to
I
I think
agree.
a issue raised early in the year around school supplies. I think at the very
Right.
beginning of the year being
Yep.
different building to building. So
Yes.
to the extent we're
It's another thing we
identifying
talked about,
those,
right.
probably
Yeah.
creating a standard that's
Yeah.
what we expect across
Yeah.
all would be great.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All right, let's move on to task team updates, communications. First of all, we should celebrate the fact that we have a budget. Very poor turnout, which was disappointing, but it's wonderful to have a budget. So I'll turn it over to Liz and Pat.
So we stop times we've been working on, and voices work. We've been doing quite a lot of. Pat, do you want to talk about the meeting last night, or do you,
Yeah, our voices meeting last night. Voices meeting last night was to collate and theme the information that we got from the safety outreach forum. Identifying, key topics and then putting everyone's suggestions into, those nice little boxes wherever we could to, sort of identify where the major areas are. There was a process that was still working on before I unfortunately had to go to a sick child. But as I was leaving, it seemed like we were pretty clear that I think most of the ideas, the vast majority of the ideas, at least, were falling into a couple of really strong topics. Security measures was one. Relationship building, between whether it be between students and teachers, or students and other students, or students and staff. was another one, and restorative practices came up very, very frequently. Whether it be suggestions about making sure that every teacher or a school administration official is trained in restorative practice and justice, or just general themes around it or sort of regarding it. I think those are kind of like the three big key themes that I saw in there were 400 almost suggestions, and of the 150 or so that I went through, most of them fit into one of those three categories.
Yep. So that's good. We had a meeting, just one more voices, Ben and Beth and Amy and Sue and Reed and I all met, again, talking about the sustainability mostly and how we're gonna keep this work going beyond the grant. So just wanted to let you know that work is constantly going on to figure out the sustainability for the district. And I think that's about it for now. And Pat has reached out to the PTOs and has set up a meeting with the PTOs to try to figure out the best way to get, or try to see if they can play a part in learning how buildings want to communicate with their board.
Yeah, I've had one meeting to begin with Hiawatha, and I think that was just the easiest because they know me. But I have another one set up with Fleming. I have reached out to everyone else, Westford, the Essex Town PTO. I have not heard back from them or ADL yet to get a solid time, but I only sent the emails out last week, and I know a lot of these groups only meet once a month, so I'm assuming there's going to be some discussion and talk about it. But I mean, even beginning, it was kind of eye-opening. Like, PTO parents who are really heavily involved in the schools, the presidents, they didn't know what VFE did. They heard about it, but they were like, yeah, we've seen it around. We know it exists. Like, what does it do? So I got to take 25 minutes to explain what VFE did. And then one of those parents came to our VFA meeting last night.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, if the rest of the outreach works even half as well as that, then I think that it's going to be a really positive relationship back and forth.
That's wonderful. Great. Any questions for Pat and Liz? Okay. Testing membership. I am not going to do appointments tonight, but I'm going to ask people to think about where their interests lie. The policy testing's work is almost complete, so those of you on that test team may want to think about whether you want to join something else. Communications is ongoing. Negotiations is going to have to start working again in the fall, so that's definitely a test team that continues. The superintendent evaluation test team doesn't have strictly ongoing work, but that will need to remain in existence. Am I forgetting anything? Communications, obviously. So if you've been on a test team that you would like off of and you have a different interest, let me know. If you get it. I can't put it all together right now. But let me know what you're thinking, where your interests lie. I'll send out an email to remind you that I want to know this, and I'll try to make appointments at the next meeting. Okay, questions about that? Okay, all right, I just lost my agenda. So I think we're at statewide updates. Kim, I know you've had a VSBA meeting.
I did. I don't know. Last Wednesday, so however current that is in today's world. I don't know where House 911 is standing right now with respect to, I think it's in the Senate, right? and that is the
So-
funding bill. So I know you've kept up on that probably better than I did. I think the VSBA is staying with the position that don't make changes that impact FY19, don't move teachers' retirement, don't make changes. There are communities where we unified, our tax rates were pretty similar. There are communities that will be badly hurt by unification and the loss of the differential protection in their tax rates community to community. So that there are, many things that they remain concerned about, and she really didn't know what was going to end up happening. There was consensus that it is not more transparent, easier to understand, but liked the idea that there's looking at other revenue sources than property tax. But if we think about how long it took for a unification law to come into effect with Act 46, Nicole shared was that there were 6 days of committee work total, 2 in ed, 2 in appropriations, and 2 in finance in the House before it moved on. That's 6 days. And it seemed shy of what would make sense for the impact. If we think about Act 60 and 68 and the years that took to be done, that is among the concerns. So
I would just add to that, I was with the chair of Senate Finance at VSAC meetings yesterday. And I would just say that what is overshadowing all of this is that it isn't very clear what the governor how to get to yes with the governor. He's not making his positions clear. And she said that's making it hard for her committee to get focused. So, whatever that's worth.
I think that early childhood stuff remains looming out there. There had been some conversation of parsing it out by birth to 3 and then 4 and 5 and seeing how that would work. At this point, I had to go back and try and remember what the point of making tweaks to the early childhood law was in the first place, and it was really had its genesis in the notion that we could be creating greater disparity by only reimbursing $10 hours worth of pre-K, because that only is accessible for so many, if you can get your kid around to other places to be able to use it. The changes they are making to the early childhood law does nothing to address the original concerns, and I think Nicole did not know what to say about where it might end up, but there is still the question of whether or not we will be able to count our
Yeah, so it's
our
interesting. I know you've been away all weekend. In the VSBA update, it does say that House Ed wants to keep the present system, but they also want to, like for 10 hours a week, you get to count 0.463 or something FTE. They are looking at a 1.0 FTE if you provide 10 hours a day, I think.
it's 20.
And 1.3 FTE if you provide more than 10 hours a day. So, but it was encouraging
week, right, Martha? Because you couldn't get 10 hours a day.
No, it was a day.
So if you have extended programs,
7 a.m. to 5
So if you have a pre-K that acts like a
daycare.
Yeah, exactly. So it's complicated. I will say this, and I think we've talked about it before, and Kim has been clear, that if the Senate bill were to pass and we were not able to count the kids who go to preschool in private settings, that would be a revenue loss to the district across the state we
Yep.
know it's a fairly significant revenue loss to districts.
Right.
And since we provide a lot of our pre-K through private providers, you have to think it would hit us hard.
I think too, the loss of the relationships built, that is sort of what you are hoping happens, that you're getting to these kids younger so that you know how to be working with their preschool providers to create continuity that helps you be prepared for what they need as they arrive. Those are relationships that have been built over the last several years that would be dissolved by the AOE taking over the situation, and that disconnect and what you would think happens when you see, longitudinal data over students in their progression capturing those benefits. I think you have to have those relationships. And so that I just feel like for so many reasons it gets in the way of some of the progress that's been made, and I'm not sure what problem it solves is the other problem.
Right.
Administration of it.
Well, it's hard to
Well, I
say.
think it was because there were two different bodies dealing with administration. and
Right, so they
it-
were trying to
they
make
tried to
things
get
more
zealous.
separate, but I think they've made things worse.
The only comment I was going to make is the governor was quite clear in a recent Burlington Free Press article that he wants lower education costs and better outcomes. So he's obviously looking for a way to cut.
Yeah,
And to shift that
it's
burden.
very hard to understand that because he has said publicly he will not go back into budgets that are passed.
Right.
So it's hard to understand where you get 40
Right.
million.
Right.
I just don't get it. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned.
I think the
Anything
other,
else?
the SPED bill, they've got the block grants being considered for publics, but letting the independent schools continue to use the reimbursement model. So that was the latest version.
Yeah, that's
So just-
clearly controversial.
Yes,
Yeah.
controversial. There had been some information that the NEA Delegate Assembly had approved moving to a statewide healthcare plan with some very specific conditions on how that plan would be arrived at. And that was the first Nicole had really heard of that, so there was more conversation to happen to see if that moves anywhere. And they're looking at a 3-year timeline for a coalition to focus on curriculum and standards around ethnic and social equity standards and policies. That I think would, from the VSBA standpoint, they will continue to look at the idea of what we can do as a toolbox almost for boards and districts to, mostly at the board level, what can we offer to, what can boards have in their toolbox to start looking in a meaningful way at equity. They did have some information out of the NSBA conference that they may be able to bring to the field some additional information when considering issues of Black Lives Matter or flying flags on a pole.
Okay.
And so there are some additional resources through the NSBA, but they had just come back from a conference. And so the new attorney or legal person for the VSBA said that she is working on trying to pull together
Well,
something
she
to get to the
sent
field.
something to us that
The
was a
first round that
national,
was-
right?
And it had, I think, a link to the NSBA. No?
It
Anyway,
it
I don't
was a
think we've gotten
national
anything since
document.
Wednesday though, right?
Was that the one, the
Oh, it
policy
was-
on freedom of speech?
It's the freedom
Right.
of press and speech.
Press speech.
Right.
And so my question back to her was that's completely fine, but it doesn't actually address
The
these type of
flag, the
matters.
flagpole
and
issues,
standards. So
right?
I think we can expect that we'll see a little bit more on that, even if not by virtue of a particular policy, but support for the process, I think. I'll follow up with her again.
Okay, great. Questions, comments? Okay, takeaways from this meeting. I guess we could talk about is Pat here?
Okay, I'll take
Yes.
notes.
Oh,
He's in the bathroom,
He's
I'll
here.
take notes.
okay. We could talk about the election of officers.
Yes.
Um,
It was A positive vote is a good day.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Westford, the presentation from the Westford kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
But,
What was the first thing you said, Martha? Oh, okay.
uh, yeah, we should say something about the vote. Thank you, folks, for that came out and
Yes.
expressing gratitude.
On the vote, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and you could mention the two policies.
Okay.
Okay.
Taking notes for your takeaways, and I'll just send it to you.
So the agenda for May 1st, we will have Chris here that night to talk about discipline hearings. And he will be able to advise us if we have questions about the question that the Westford students asked tonight about flying the flag. What else is coming on May 1st?
Grading.
Pardon?
Grading.
Oh,
That was in May. I will check
I
with
thought,
Rob
yeah,
if it was.
I don't know if it's,
I don't know if it's the May 1st or the second one.
right, which must be the
I think it was
15th.
originally April.
It
was one of the
was,
original
and he
April
asked for
meetings.
May, right? And then we have Chris in May 1st, so I
Yeah, last,
will check
didn't we
with
say
him.
May 1st last time?
have to look at my.
She said he has to wait till May.
I
We
don't think he
didn't say
defined.
which meeting in May.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well,
Beth,
we
can you
know
let me know
we-
when you know that, just
Yeah.
because the start-stop presentation community member was told May 1st, so if it's not May 1st, the
Okay.
sooner we could tell him, the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
So,
I will. I will email him right now.
we should have a start time update. And, yeah, we probably won't be ready for a transportation update yet, right? It's all kind of mixed
I
together.
was just going to say, I don't
anyway
think
at
you can
this
ask one
point.
question.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think Brian's realized that's
Right,
come up
it's
literally
all
every time.
connected. Yeah.
So for the,
Brandon,
for the next meeting, will we actually have discussion about the Black Lives Matter flag?
we're gonna have to, we should make a decision
Take
at the
action.
next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And on that note, if you have specific questions that you would like researched by the administration before we have to make that decision, please send them to me. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Last thing I'll say is I got an email from Marla yesterday. Did you all get it? No,
No.
I don't think so. I think it was just to me. She said she's hoping to get out of rehab on the 21st. It's been hard. They had a lot of trouble with some of her pain medication, was making her sick. But I think things are going better now. And she was, as I think I've told you, incredibly appreciative of the flowers that we
Oh,
sent.
good. Nice.
So she'll, she still will have lots of physical therapy to go. It will be a while before she can come to meetings again. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, Diane.